General Hospital spoilers reveal that a devastating shock has just hit Port Charles. This time, the nightmare is not just a medical emergency, a romantic betrayal, or a power struggle. It is the sudden, mysterious, and incredibly dangerous disappearance of a newborn baby, Sasha and Michael's child. The little girl had barely uttered her first cries. Had only just been cradled in her mother's tearful arms, her heart overwhelmed with joy after a painful and chaotic journey to childbirth. But that sweet dream was mercilessly torn apart when Sasha woke from a short nap to find the crib empty, the window oddly ajar, and the suffocating darkness of a terrible truth closing in. No hurried footsteps, no baby's cries, only a chilling emptiness and a gut-wrenching instinct pulsing through every cell of the new mother's body. The baby had been kidnapped. In that moment, Sasha's reason shattered. Her mind spiraled into a nightmare with no way out, as if everything was repeating itself in a cruel, unstoppable cycle. The months of being manipulated by Sidwell. The near loss of her child during pregnancy, the court trials, oaths, Nina's betrayal, and the custody battle between Michael and Willow, all stabbed at her chest like sharp blades once again. But the fatal blow, the true shock, was the eerie silence in the room once filled with the sound of new life. And from that moment, a fire began to rise deep in Sasha's soul, not just to find her child, but to destroy anyone who dared to steal the last light of her life. When Michael received the call from the hospital, he was thrown into disbelief. His heart clenched, his mind spinning, unable to comprehend how this could have happened. He had believed he was strong enough, powerful enough, and influential enough to protect the small family he had just begun to rebuild with Sasha. But now, all his shields seemed meaningless. His rage wasn't the suppressed grief Sasha felt, it was a sudden transformation, as if every ounce of compassion had been scorched away, leaving behind a man with nothing left to lose. Ready to burn the world down to get his child back. He had once lost Wiley, and now he would not let history repeat itself with Daisy, no matter the cost to his life or morals. What neither Sasha nor Michael knows is that this kidnapping was not spontaneous. It was a carefully orchestrated plan, calculated with hatred, ambition, and the dark alliances lurking beneath the peaceful surface of Port Charles. Perhaps Sidwell, the man who once nearly killed Sasha, is trying to use the baby as a final bargaining chip in a deadly game with Sunny and Jason. Or maybe it's a brutal warning from an invisible enemy aiming straight at Michael's softest spot to dismantle the entire Corinthos legacy from within. Or worse, this is just one move in a larger, more intricate plot, possibly led by someone they once trusted, Nina, or even Drew. As Port Charles descends into turmoil, the search begins, desperate and chaotic. Sasha refuses to stay put in the hospital, ignoring doctors' warnings of severe postpartum risks. She roams everywhere, questioning nurses, checking security footage, and breaking down in despair at the system's failure. Michael turns to Jason, Spinelli, Brick, anyone who might offer even the tiniest lead. A new battle is forming, not just to retrieve a child, but a bloody purge led by those who have been hurt too deeply. This child is more than just the daughter of Sasha and Michael. She is a symbol of rebirth, of hope rising from ruins. Her disappearance has plunged not only her parents into personal hell, but also triggered deeper psychological and political tremors across the town. Port Charles, a place already marked by painful rebirths, now stands at the edge of a new catastrophe, where love is tested by hatred, where compassion is drowned in despair, and where even a faint flicker of light can ignite a storm that destroys everything. The question is no longer just who kidnapped the baby, but who is cruel enough to use an innocent life as a tool for revenge. And who among them, Sasha, Michael, Sunny, or even Jason, is willing to sacrifice everything, even their soul, to bring Daisy back? Daisy is now more than the centerpiece of a budding family. She has become the symbol of buried conflicts, sinister schemes, and growing chaos in Port Charles. Every fragile breath she takes is threatened, not only by external forces but also by those closest to her. Willow, on the verge of a psychological breakdown after devastating betrayals by Drew and Nina, is slowly losing grip on reality. Her rage is building into a storm ready to consume anyone who hurt her, including Daisy. Though she says nothing, her gaze, her odd behavior, her evasiveness when the baby is mentioned, all paint a chilling picture of what might happen if Daisy remains near her. But Willow isn't the only threat. Drew, once seen as a hero, now reveals a darker side as his dirty secrets come to light. From interfering with Willow's trip to Germany, falsifying medical records, to his secretive relationship with Nina, Drew has shown he is willing to sacrifice anyone, even an innocent child, if it secures his political power in the battle for Port Charles. Daisy, though just a newborn, is a pawn he wouldn't hesitate to play if it helps him break Sasha or manipulate Michael. His cold, emotionless demeanor beneath his political smile makes the situation even more terrifying. Yet the greatest threat Daisy faces doesn't come from her inner circle, but from an external dark force. Sidwell and the underground alliance he's building. Sidwell is no longer a name whispered in the shadows. He is now a powerful player, manipulating information, finances, even people in Port Charles. With Holly, once a friend and now an accomplice, Sidwell has rebuilt an entire criminal network under a false front of goodwill. Now, he wants to use Daisy as an ace to crush Sasha, Michael, and even Sunny and Jason. This child is not just the daughter of two former targets, she is a link, a symbol connecting many major players in town. A link Sidwell is determined to break to make way for absolute power. Holly, though still projecting calm and kindness, has acted in ways that betray her conscience. No one knows why she allied with Sidwell, but leaked intel suggests Holly possesses classified documents capable of toppling key figures, one of which concerns Daisy's true origin. Is she truly just Sasha and Michael's daughter? Or is there a deeper secret behind her bloodline? Holly's unusual silence, paired with Sidwell's shady financial activities, only deepens the danger. Port Charles is entering a phase of chaos, where a child not even a month old has become the center of a web full of manipulation, ambition, and danger. Daisy's survival depends not just on her parents' love, but on whether those around her have the strength to resist the rising dark forces, or if they will be consumed by the cycle of hatred and betrayal. In a world where anyone could be a spy, a traitor, or a victim, Daisy stands as a stark reminder: innocence is not safety. And even the smallest mistake could plunge Port Charles into irreversible crisis. When the identity of Daisy's kidnapper is finally revealed, Michael and Sasha's entire world comes crashing down in an instant. Neither could have imagined that the little girl they had just held in their arms, the child who had brought with her so much hope for a new beginning, would be drawn into a dark conspiracy tied to their painful past. The nightmare that began with a fire, a horrific blaze at Sunny's former penthouse, where Michael nearly died in the flames, now continues with an even deeper wound, the loss of a child. And the most horrifying thing of all is not the kidnapping, but the fact that the mastermind behind it all is the same person who burned Michael's entire life, both physically and mentally. The connection between the fire and the current kidnapping is a double-edged sword that cuts deep into Michael's faith. He always assumed that the fire was the work of some enemy of Sunny's. But he never thought that he was still alive, still active, still chasing him like a vengeful prey. Now that Daisy has been taken from her parents, Michael realizes that he has never truly escaped the shadow of the old fire. Even as he thought he had moved on to a new chapter with Sasha, with his family, with his life, dark forces were still silently watching his every move, waiting for the weakest moment to strike the fatal blow. Sasha, meanwhile, is not only a grieving mother but also a woman struggling to stay sane amid the whirlwind of hatred. She cannot forget Sidwell's kidnapping, a horrifying memory still burned into her mind. She knows full well what Sidwell and his allies are capable of, and now that Michael reveals that the man who tried to kill him now has their daughter, Sasha's fear turns to rage. No longer a helpless victim, pushed around like a pawn, this time, Sasha is determined to stand up, side by side with Michael, to reclaim her child and eliminate anyone who threatens her family. The search begins with desperation but not without determination. Jason, Sunny, Spinelli and Brick join in, bringing all their skills and resources to bear on the kidnapper. They are up against not just a lone criminal but an entire underground network, an alliance of Sidwell, Holly, and possibly other unnamed forces. Every step must be taken with caution. Every clue a trap. But Michael is undeterred. In his eyes, nothing is more valuable than getting Daisy back, even if it means losing his life. When Michael tracks Daisy's car to a detention facility on the outskirts of Port Charles, his heart breaks as he remembers that this is the area near the burned-out apartment building. It felt like history was repeating itself, like he was playing a sick game, using painful memories to torture him. But this time, Michael wasn't alone. Sasha, despite the danger, decided to come along. No one could stop her from finding her child. Jason and Brick stayed behind, ready to pounce at the first sign. Inside the ruined building, the kidnapper had no idea he had been discovered. He still believed that Michael was just a weak boy haunted by his burns, that Sasha was just a victim of his past. That people like Jason would never dare to cross the line. But he was wrong. As Michael and Jason rushed in, gunshots rang out in the quiet night. A gunfight erupted between crime and justice. Between hatred and hope. Sasha, slightly wounded but not giving up, still rushed towards where Daisy was trapped. Her daughter's cries were the lifeline that pulled her out of her fear. When Daisy was finally rescued, the air was filled with tears and blood. But that's not the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter of a family determined not to let the past control the future. Sasha and Michael are no longer fearful parents. They are warriors. And their vow now is not revenge, but to never let Daisy grow up in the shadow of evil. But at the same time, Michael knows, the arsonist is still at large. And this kidnapping is just the first of many disasters to come. But he's ready, not just to confront, but to root out evil before it can take root in his child's soul. Michael and Jason will no longer stand idly by as darkness surrounds the people they love and familiar hands are bloodied in their own dirty schemes. After the shock of Daisy's kidnapping, after tracking down the man who burned down the penthouse and nearly killed Michael, both men now know that time is running out to prevent another disaster from befalling Port Charles. In the midst of the chaos, Drew and Sidwell's alliance, once a vague hypothesis, is gradually confirmed by a series of shady evidence, deleted calls, suspicious money transfers, and sophisticated cover-ups directed by Drew. Michael is no longer the young man who only knows how to stand in the shadow of the Corinthos family's power. He is a father, a husband. A man who has been pushed to the brink by loss and betrayal, and he will not let history repeat itself. Jason, with the keen intuition and instincts of a retired assassin, now once again steps into the land he knows best, a land with no rules other than the justice of his own making. The two plan, no noise, no declaration, but a series of cold, precise, and devastating actions. Every person in Sidwell and Drew's network begins to be tracked, every communication is hacked, every mistake is recorded, every weakness is exposed. The truth gradually comes out, leaving Michael numb, not with surprise, but with bitterness. Drew, the person he once considered family, an ally, turns out to be the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. Not only did Drew collude with Sidwell to expand his shadowy financial empire, but Drew was the one who ordered Willow to be prevented from meeting Michael in Germany, an action that led to a series of misunderstandings and a seemingly irreparable estrangement between the two. Now, with his daughter targeted, and the hidden alliances beginning to act openly, Michael has no choice but to take them all down, even if it means facing Drew on the opposite side of the battlefield. Jason knows that from now on, they're not just fighting for Daisy or Sasha, but for the survival of the very ideals they once fought for, ideals of loyalty, of honor, and of keeping the innocent safe. And if Drew and Sidwell's alliance survives, if it continues to sow danger from behind the scenes, Port Charles will never be at peace. So Michael and Jason are prepared not only to destroy their plans, but to wipe out the very roots that are rotting the city. They're not looking for forgiveness or favors. They're just asking for the truth to be known and for the betrayers to be made to pay. And when night falls, with only quiet footsteps and steely gazes, one knows a storm has officially begun. Holly and Robert's return to Port Charles is more than just a visit. This time, they have a mission to fulfill, a determination forged from months of secretly investigating, monitoring, and tracking down the dark network that Jen Sidwell is running from the shadows. When they hear that Sasha has given birth to a daughter, and that just a few days later, little Daisy has been kidnapped under suspicious circumstances, Holly immediately realizes that this is more than just an ordinary kidnapping. This is a calculated declaration of war on the entire network of power in the town. And she knows she can't afford to delay any longer. She and Robert cut short their mission in Europe, gather the remaining evidence, and board the first flight back to Port Charles, carrying a trove of documents, recordings, and confidential investigative files that could expose the entire kidnapping plot and threaten the safety of the Corinthos family. Their presence immediately stirs the city. While Sasha and Michael are in a state of emotional turmoil over the loss of their child, Sonny, Jason, and Spinelli begin to work more closely together to find the person who set fire to the penthouse, the same person who allegedly kidnapped Daisy. Ironically, while suspicion falls on Sonny's old enemies, Holly discovers a more shocking truth: Sidwell did not act alone. Behind him lies a complex financial and political network, with connections from Zurich to Singapore, and even traces that have infiltrated the boards of ELQ and several Quartermain charities. Robert, as a senior government agent, begins to activate the underground connections within WSB to trace Sidwell's money and contacts. A list of people who have met with Sidwell, including prominent politicians, doctors, and businessmen in the medical and financial communities, is being prepared for the city attorney. But the danger is that not all of them are obvious villains. Many of them have been coerced, threatened, or manipulated by secrets Sidwell has collected. And so Robert and Holly must choose their targets carefully, avoiding plunging Port Charles into a hidden civil war between powerful factions. Meanwhile, Sasha, still grappling with the trauma of being separated from her newborn daughter, begins to see signs of trouble in Drew's promises of help. She suspects that Drew and Willow are not just victims, but may be caught between two forces, or worse, used as pawns in Sidwell's political game. Holly can't shake her suspicions, because leaked spy files reveal Drew had been in contact with a contact connected to Sidwell, right after Sasha refused to share custody. Whether he's guilty or not remains to be seen. But Drew is certainly not innocent of the web of trouble brewing in the town. The combination of Holly, Robert, and old allies like Jason, Sonny, Carly, and Spinelli creates a new defense for Sasha, and, more importantly, for a town on the brink of chaos. But what makes this fight different is how personal it is. Sasha is fighting not just to get her child back, but to regain the honor, trust, and parental rights she feels have been robbed of. Holly is fighting to atone for her past with Sidwell, when she was forced to carry out missions whose consequences now haunt her niece. Robert wants to use his return to wipe out a dark force that has failed him so many times in the past. And Jason, though quietly, fights a lingering guilt, knowing that if he doesn't act quickly, the next name on the hit list could be anyone he loves. With each passing day, Daisy could be smuggled out of the country, or worse, used as a hostage in a power transaction bigger than anyone could have imagined. But with Holly and Robert back, and a network of elite allies tightening their grip, Port Charles is about to enter its most dramatic phase in years. A storm is coming, but this time, the people who failed are ready to stand up and end it. And they won't stop until Sasha holds her baby in her arms, and the town is cleansed of all the ghosts that have been manipulating it from the shadows. The big secret Holly and Robert have been keeping from each other finally comes out at the worst possible time, as Michael and Sasha struggle to find their newborn baby, Daisy, after a kidnapping that has rocked Port Charles. They once trusted Holly and Robert as their guardians, warriors of righteousness who would do anything to protect the vulnerable. But as the chain of events unravels, from the existence of a covert operation they once worked on with Sidwell to their active silence about the threats to Sasha, Michael is left reeling. A sense of betrayal mounts, not only because they failed to stop the kidnapping, but also because they may have known all along the way, and still allowed an innocent child to fall into the hands of their enemies. Documents declassified by an anonymous source, possibly Spinelli or Brick, show that Holly had been acting as a liaison between Sidwell and an international intelligence agency, tracking the flow of dirty money from cross-border money laundering operations. During that time, she had been spotted at a base in France, which coincided with Sidwell's plan to kidnap key figures associated with the Corinthos bloodline. What was even more shocking was that Robert had been tipped off early on that Sidwell might target Sasha and Michael's child after it was born, but, lacking concrete evidence, he had not intervened, dismissing it as an unverified intelligence theory. That naivety, or strategic coldness, now turned into a knife in Michael's confidence. Sasha, in desperation, confronted Holly directly at Port Charles Police Headquarters, where an emergency meeting was being held between the WSB, the mayor, and local authorities. She is no longer the weak woman who lost her child. With a steely voice and eyes burning with grief, she demands to know everything Holly knows, including her past contacts with Sidwell and the possibility that someone within the system is aiding him. The emotional confrontation between these two women who were once allies silences the room, except for the WSB representatives tapping on the table as he reads off the names of possible hiding places where Sidwell might be hiding. Robert, meanwhile, is caught in a dilemma. As someone who loved and trusted Holly, he also knows the extent of Sidwell's brutality, and knows that even the slightest slip-up could mean Daisy disappearing forever without a trace. He orders an undercover team to join Jason and Sunny to infiltrate a logistics network on the South Florida coast, believed to be a transit point for illegal newborns linked to Sidwell. Meanwhile, Michael, torn between wanting to trust the system and feeling betrayed, begins to investigate Sidwell's financial connections himself, uncovering a string of anonymous accounts linked to a medical company Drew had invested in the past, hinting that Drew may not have been entirely innocent in this power play. Port Charles is now like a volcano about to erupt. Secrets from the past slowly leak out through reports, interviews, and encrypted messages between the parties involved. Each new piece of information is revealed, peeling back a layer of trust, revealing the dark truth beneath. The community is divided, the local press begins to exploit the case heavily, and people who were once symbols of justice like Holly and Robert suddenly become heavy targets of criticism. But amid the chaos, one question remains unanswered. Are Holly and Robert hiding one last secret, one that could save Daisy, or one that could shatter Michael and Sasha's fragile hopes? And if so, when will it be revealed? When so much blood and tears have been shed, when justice is shaped by shady deals, will an innocent child ever be able to return to her mother's arms? Or will she become the victim of a political game too cruel to forgive? In the coming days, as the hunt for Daisy enters its most intense phase, Michael, Sasha, Jason, and Sunny will have to face not only enemies outside, but also ghosts within their own ranks, and that will be the true test of family, love, and what remains of Port Charles's faith.